What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. If I am low energy today, it's because I'm recovering from a harrowing 3 days in my household of a stomach bug shredding through my entire family. And if I am high energy today, it is because I am upset that the Yankees season is hanging in the balance when an uneventful spring training turned into, oh crap, oh no, what is happening? Hey, Scott.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, if I'm low energy, it's because I was getting back from South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, and got in very late last night and couldn't sleep. So I was watching the Yes Network and lots of clips to catch up on things that I may have missed. And it seems like when I left, everybody got injured. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with that, but yeah, it was an uneventful, and that was like the storyline. Maybe that's why the storyline was leaned in too much.
The
health is
storyline
good.
was that no one is injured, that everything is going too well.
You heard it consistently across all, people who cover the team, and I guess that is the storyline until it isn't anymore, until it completely gets flipped on its head. But anytime you have pictures taken of the reigning Cy Young, one of them doesn't have a job, the other one is now getting MRIs of his elbow. Is a concern,
and that's
a concern.
It's because it's Cole, right? Judge being beat up and being taken out of the lineup, maybe sitting for a couple days in the middle of March. Okay, fine. Like, you expect that kind of stuff to happen, no matter who regular, everyday player that is. The one thing you don't want to see is a starting pitcher need an MRI on March 11th as he's trying to ramp up for the season. And the fact that it's Gerrit Cole, which I think we have been taking for granted the last couple years at how healthy and durable this guy is. It's just like, oh yeah, Cole's going to make 32 starts because he does every single season. And what did we say for the past 2 months leading into this season? The rotation has injury questions behind Gerrit Cole. That was always the thing. It's like, Cole, we can count on. Everyone else is an injury question mark. Not worried about the talent and what the potential can be. We're happy with what the potential can be, but injuries are always a factor. And now, if Gerrit Cole is going to be out for a significant amount of time, delayed for a significant amount of time, or worst case scenario, needs Tommy John surgery, and that's a wrap on his 2024 season, like, this looks completely different.
Yeah, it does. It looks completely different in that scenario. And then you start looking around, and lucky for us, there are two guys that are out there that can come in and immediately help a rotation. Granted, they're going to cost double the money because the Yankees are in a position where the tax dollars are going to hit. But I'll push back a bit on the taking him for granted. I don't think we've taken him for granted in that regard, because we've talked about how many times last year that, hey, wasting a very, very good Gerrit Cole season. The guy's healthy, the guy's dealing, and the Yankees are just wasting it away because of all the
maybe assuming it's just going to continue.
Holes.
I don't know. It's just
you expect that you have an expectation of a guy who goes out there as a horse and does the thing. So yes, when you see and look, I was going back and again I was kind of going down some wormholes last night, and I went back and was watching the Gerrit Cole talked to the press after his sim game on the 7th or 6th or the 7th, I think it was. Because remember, we've only seen him one time, and it was for a brief amount of time, right?
March 1st against Toronto. It was his first start of the season. It was a Friday night. He got rocked in the first inning. He got pulled in the middle of the first inning, but then because of the spring rules, you're allowed to bring the guy back out because really they're just trying to get work. And he pitched a clean second inning. But after that, he threw the one sim game, and that's it. Hasn't made another start.
I just thought of something that you're going to absolutely hate. What happens when we hear that the reason he was pulled in that inning was because there was a little bit of discomfort, and then they brought him back out?
Of course that's going to happen. What are you talking about that
happen.
I'm going to hate? Of course that's going to come out. Of course. It's like maybe he told somebody, but not everybody. Or maybe he didn't tell anybody because he's Gerrit Cole and he doesn't want to do, I don't know. Of course.
So the 2 innings ish for that one, and then all of a sudden there's a behind closed doors sim game in which if you go back and listen to the them talking about it, Jack Curry was dialed in on Ben Rortvedt having great at bats against Gerrit Cole twice.
It's not a good sign.
Dialed in and getting hits, yeah, and Cole was just like, yeah, it was fun. So they're talking about that. And then all of a sudden we have an MRI after the closed door or behind the closed door pitching session that nobody saw. So I don't know,
Ben
man.
Rartvett was hitting laser beams off Gerrit
Yeah,
Cole. Oh crap! Not good. Not good.
right. I'm like, well, why are we? That sounds way more fucked up today than it did a week and a half ago or a week ago. So I don't know, man. Like when you put that all together and you kind of lay out the map, there's something there that obviously was they weren't talking about. They were not talking about it. And the recovery, it feels like he's at 100 pitches. So I know we're going to talk about this twice in this episode because we do have to bring it up with Max because I want to know what he knows, if he knows anything else, if he's
Yeah.
what all the beat folks are talking about behind closed doors too. I'm interested to hear that.
Well, let us focus on trying to read between the lines. Between the lines, he. I saw some quotes yesterday that he likened it to feeling like recovering from a midseason start rather than a preseason start, and just like the lethargicness that he would feel, say, after a June 10th start instead of a March 1st start. It's just like his recovery time was lower, and that caused him to have some concern. And I saw some people throw around, oh, dead arm. Maybe it's just a dead arm. Like we've seen that before. Pitchers get dead arm. You sit down for 4 weeks, and then you're back and you're fine. But isn't dead arm usually like shoulder soreness, not elbow soreness?
I don't know if I'm not sure if it's designated for one area. I think it's just general soreness.
Yes, but usually when they refer to dead arm, I could be totally wrong on this. I always have
You hear about
thought of
muscle,
that as
it's like
shoulder.
muscle fatigue. It's
But muscle
fatigue.
fatigue is elbow is ligament. Okay, that's
correct.
if you say, oh, my arm is sore, you're not like you'd be like, my elbow hurts. Like if
Elbow's
your
usually
arm
like
is
a
sore,
pain, a
yeah,
sharpness. There's usually what's the word? Acute. There's an acute sense of pain or discomfort or something along those lines. Whereas, yeah, your shoulder can get tired, your bicep can get tired, like the muscles
like
around
up here, you're like, I can't lift it up. Like, oh man, it's just sore. Otherwise, you're like, my elbow is freaking killing me. Like, there's a sharp pain in my elbow. It's going through my forearm. Like, I'm feeling something like really bad here. And getting an MRI on the elbow, maybe
I doubt he said all that
anyway.
because if he said all that, there would be
no. I didn't. No, I'm not sorry. I didn't mean he said all that. But usually, if there's pain in the elbow, that is worse news than pain in the shoulder.
I mean, sure. They both can be bad, but yes.
And they would probably do an MRI on his elbow regardless. They're probably doing an MRI, CSI Bronx. They're probably doing an MRI on everything on his arm. But the fact that they called out he's having an MRI, so I don't know.
I look, I hope this is Gerrit Cole saying and being very, overly
Cautious?
sensitive to his body and how he feels because he's dialed in on every little thing. So if this is him just trying to get ahead of something like more so for his own purposes, for what rehab looks like, for what the throwing program looks like afterwards, I don't know. He does this type of thing where he's looking at details with a microscope, and I appreciate that. That said, a lot of times MRIs don't come back when you're on an elbow. We get scared, obviously. Fear strikes us immediately. I do hope this is just Gerrit Cole being, as finely in tune with his body as humanly possible, and imaging can make that more clear for him too. So that's my glass half full.
Yeah, I think you got to take that approach at this point. Doesn't look like we're going to have a prognosis until maybe Wednesday. So it'll be later this week that this happens. We're recording this on Tuesday. We've been recording Wednesdays in the off season, but because of scheduling things, we had to record Tuesday. Do you think though, if this is a serious injury to Cole, like are you just assuming, oh yeah, they're going to go out and sign Blake Snell, or they're going to go out and do this? Because that's not a given.
It's not a given. It's not a given. And if the reason they were going to sign Blake Snell was because the pitching staff was, they believed it needed one more guy, then yeah, they should absolutely go sign Blake Snell. But if it has to do with a money thing, then what's different? Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Nothing's different.
The reality is it's probably both, that they think, yeah, maybe the rotation could use one more guy, but it's not worth it for the money they would have to spend, right? Like, you think that's probably the real answer
for people that have look at the whole situation. Yes, that should be. So then
what happens now if you now really need another guy? How much is it worth it at that point? Because you're right, it's going to cost 100 and what was it, 104% or something like that was the actual numbers, that whatever dollar you spend on Blake Snell is going to cost you 104%.
Yeah, call it $2 to every dollar for simple people that do simple math. And if you sign him for $30 million, that's a $60 million hit because of the threshold plus. So yeah, it's a significant deal. There's no doubt about it. And who knows if they're willing to go to that level. But I will tell you this, if Gerrit Cole is not healthy to start the season, the Yankees need another pitcher. There's no doubt about it. Anybody who says different is crazy, especially in this year that we've all identified as a very, very important year. Again, the window that we seemingly bring up every few years, there's a new window. This is a window because you're wasting prime years from Aaron Judge. You have Juan Soto for the 1 year. Obviously, Gerrit Cole is the center of this attention, but he's been in the prime. So you need to go after it with all these expiring 1-year deals that are happening this year. And I thought that before Gerrit Cole came up saying that he needed an MRI on his elbow.
Well, you said if he's not ready to start, he's not going to start the season. At this point, he's not starting opening day. But you mean like if he's out until May 1st or out until the second half of the season? Because what are the options here, right? Like option one, best case scenario, he just needs to be shut down for a couple weeks. He'll start up his throwing program again later this month, and then maybe he'll be back from May 1st. Like that's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is he's done for the season and he needs Tommy John surgery. And then there's a middle ground in which he needs to really shut down this arm and let it rest and recover, kind of like what Tanaka did. Remember what Tanaka did? I forget what season that was, where he basically didn't pitch for 4 straight months and then came back towards the end of the season to rehab it. Like that is,
but he had a torn UCL.
Yeah, we don't know what the prognosis is.
No, that's what I'm saying. But there was a diagnosis there. It was
a minor tear.
It was a tear in the UCL. Yeah. So, and yes, you can pitch. You can pitch through that. You can. It can heal and you can pitch through it. But depending on the severity of that tear, a tear and a strain, sometimes referred to as the same, depending on the how extreme it is. But yeah, man, like if nothing comes back and the MRI is completely clean, do they immediately start throwing again?
No, he's shut down for a couple weeks, I think, just to be safe, which I'm totally fine with, by the way.
I would be fine with that.
If we don't have Gerrit Cole until the end of April, and that's going to ensure he pitches the rest of the season, like, of course you do not rush him back. I'm not suggesting that.
That's also not going to ensure anything. And that's why they need to go out and get another pitcher. Because this was March 12th. Whether it was Gerrit Cole or somebody else, this was going to happen. We all knew that this was going to happen.
We didn't think it was going to be Gerrit Cole. That is what is so bad about this. We thought this was going to be Rodon or Stroman or somebody else.
That guy.
And and if one of those guys went down at that point, all we would have said is, told you so, should have had someone in the waiting. Now, Cole going down, we're like, oh shit, this was worst case scenario. This is not anything anyone was foreseeing to happen, because Gerrit Cole, like I said, has been so durable. He's been the most durable starting pitcher in the American League for X number of years.
This just goes back to the point that they had the ability and still have the ability. Well, not really, because now Gerrit Cole is on the shelf and we don't know what the deal is, but to build that depth in the starting rotation on the major league level, and which is, I feel like a broken record talking about this. It's a very difficult thing to do, but with Clark Schmidt, the ability to potentially, use him as a swing guy, flex him to different spots, they had the ability to do that. And they sat on their hands and did not do it. And now they're in a bad position, worst case scenario, a very bad position, because they have zero leverage and they still have to go out and get a guy, and they're going to pay a lot of money.
And now your rotation is losing the guy that you thought you were going to be able to count on to stay healthy and lead it. And everyone else still has those injury question marks. So the chances that all of those guys, the 4 remaining guys, stay healthy the rest of the year are still as unsure as we were a week ago.
Not even healthy. Now you need Carlos Rodon to go out there and be the ace.
Be good. He needs to be the guy they signed.
Yeah. Which hasn't dealt with the pressure so far.
Oh, you want to know what his second start of the spring training, how that went? 3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 2 homers allowed on 60 pitches. He also
how did Ben Rortvedt do against him?
He also threw a live batting practice session earlier that week and allowed 4 home runs. And we joked about it last week because he had a pretty good response to those 4 home runs. He said, rather have it happen in batting practice than in the game. Well, guess what? It also happened in the game.
Yeah, It's a tough spot, man. Need this MRI to come back
His
in a good thing.
one more thing on that start from Rodon. His velocity, Rodon. How do I say it again? You totally mess my brain up every time I
By
say it.
telling
I'm
you
like,
how to say it correctly.
yes, every time
sorry.
I say it now, I'm like, I think I said it wrong.
It's just row, like you
Row.
row a boat.
Row down. Okay. Velocity was down.
Why
in
are you
that
saying
game.
down?
His velocity was down in that game. He averaged 93.2 miles an hour, maxed out at 94.8. And if you compare that to his first start of the spring, where he averaged 93.6, maxing out at 95.9. So it was down just a hair, just a tick. All right, before we talk about Judge, the regular season is rapidly approaching. That means you want to get to a game. You want to see Juan Soto in pinstripes. That is going to be so sweet watching him take the field at Yankee Stadium for the first time. If you want to buy tickets, then you have to use Game Time. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for sporting events, but you can also find tickets for concerts, comedy shows, theater, and much more. I don't know if I ever told you about this. Did we talk about the time I used Game Time for Leanne's birthday a couple months ago? We went to
Refresh my memory.
So we went to see Moulin Rouge in the city. I used Game Time to just get those tickets. It was a birthday gift for her. Nice little evening away from the kids. The people, there was these two like middle-aged drunk women sitting in back of us singing along to every single song, but singing poorly and not knowing the words. And I was just
loud enough
that it was just like bothering me because like I'm trying to watch like I'm here. I paid money to see professionals sing and dance, not to hear your drunk ass.
This is not karaoke.
No. So I finally lost it halfway through the second. I turned around and said, "Stop singing." Okay. And then they spent
like that. Did you do it like that?
Just like that. Because I just lost. I have no
patience. Cell phones were whipped out at that point.
I have no patience anymore for anything now that I have two children. I'm just like, one little thing just sets me off. So they spent the next 10 minutes blowing at the back of my head, like just blowing it. So I was like, I'm not going to turn around and say anything. Leanne gave him a few looks. It didn't make them stop. They were definitely shit-faced. But the show ended like maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, and they just darted out of there as fast as they could because they knew there was going to be a shitstorm if they stayed.
You definitely did not tell me that story.
I don't remember who I tell anything.
That is a Larry David story if I've ever heard one.
I in my brain when I was turning around, I was like, I'm gonna say, please, can you stop singing? You're disrupting everyone around you. And all that came out was stop.
Shut the
singing.
fuck up.
The Game Time app is amazing because it has so many cool features. You can see flash deals, trending tickets. You get real picture view from any seat in the house, and a new feature called Zone Deals, where you pick the section and Game Time picks your seat. And you can get big savings by doing this. There's also event cancellation protection, so you can buy with confidence. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best prices. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less money somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code BRONX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code BRONX, BRONX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you, Game Time.
That was nice of Game Time to match the Yankees luxury tax cap. It's really good. That's really good marketing.
That's very, very good. Are you concerned with Judge being beat up in the middle of March?
No.
I'm not really concerned either. Especially maybe that's because of what we just talked about with Cole. It's like my head is somewhere else right now. If this was the only thing that we had to worry about, maybe I would make a bigger deal out of this, but fine. Judge's going to sit for a few days. He's going to come back and he's going to be fine.
I can't be concerned about, wear and tear type things in the beginning. It's not even wear and tear. It's just like assimilating yourself to the norm of baseball on a daily basis. Like that's gonna it's gonna happen.
You're getting back into baseball activities, just like you work out hard for the first time in a while. You're gonna feel sore for a couple days. Like that's what I'm assuming this is.
That said, the Yankees are great at not telling you things about injuries
or mishandling things
or mishandling injuries.
Not doing
and
things.
then all of a sudden you're sitting down, and then I'm watching press conferences from 2 weeks ago to see what the vibe was. I'm looking at body language. I'm looking at, Gerrit Cole touching his nose and his face and talking with different inflections. And I got the the spotlight on him, and I'm treating it as an interrogation because I do think something was wrong then. So I'll do that again with Judge if we find something out in a week or two.
Right, because like they'll say, oh, he's going to play over the weekend, and then he doesn't play over the weekend, and he gets delayed to the middle of next week, and then they say, well, actually, Judge is going to go for some testing, and then we come back, it's like, oh yeah, the testing revealed what we thought on the original thing, which was that XYZ is sore, and he told us, but we just decided to sit him down.
He had a broken bone, right? It's crazy.
So I'm with you right now that let's try and think glass half full for the Aaron Judge thing, because the Gerrit Cole thing is worrying me, but hey, you never know with this team. Staying on the injury topic, Oswald Peraza is going to miss 6 to 8 weeks with a shoulder strain. It's usually a 10 to 12 week total rehab time until he's back playing games again. He had been having a bad spring. He was struggling early, and then once he was shut down.
I wonder how much of this you saw. Did you see the split screen of him before after the offseason? He bulked up, sort of.
Oh yeah, I saw some pictures going around of him.
He looked like, before he was a guy that just played baseball and had baseball muscles and was probably limber and did all the things, and then he started lifting, and you could definitely see that he put on weight. And I'm not saying lifting is bad. I think lifting is fine for a baseball player if you do it the correct way and in moderation. But I'm also not saying that doesn't have something to do with a shoulder strain either. With changing things up in the way that you're preparing for a season. Who knows? But
you're
tough break
saying
for
he
him.
was doing something nefarious this offseason, or you're just saying he
I'm just saying
too many weights? Oh.
Yeah, the regimen of the way that you train. If you're trying to get stronger and you're trying to lift more and you're doing, you're lifting free weights rather than doing what you did before, whether that was lifting or more like, stretching and stuff. This is the Giancarlo Stanton effect.
Well, all the weight that Giancarlo, like the weight just fell off of Giancarlo Stanton and made its way over to Peraza.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not that much, but he also could have just lost some weight and it looks more cut at this point. Sometimes you can get fooled, but yeah, man, it's a tough break for him though, because there certainly is an opportunity for a utility guy that the Yankees are looking for, someone to emerge as that person. We talked about the Yankees being in on, Ahmad Rosario and like a couple other guys that would fit the bill for that utility spot. And, for all intents and purpose, Peraza had a beat on that job if he were to be healthy and come out and have a good spring training, especially with his, he got one option left, right? So, he's got to make that move sooner than later. So it's a tough break for him being knocked down.
Yeah, we talked about this with Max maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, just the options that the Yankees have in the infield, because like, what are you really looking for in a backup infielder on this team? Like what would you prioritize?
Defense and base running.
Okay. But yeah, I agree. Because we were talking about this before we started recording. It's like some of the other guys the Yankees are maybe now linked to, and this could just be shit being thrown against the wall. JD Davis and Gene Segura have both been thrown around over the past 24, 48 hours. It's like, what does this bench need? Does this bench need a bat to come off and try and get a good at bat in the 7th or 8th inning? Or does this bench need someone who can play shortstop and back up shortstop in multiple positions in the infield? I would agree with you. I'd argue like I would rather have the defense and the versatility versus the bat in a late game scenario, because I don't know how good I would feel about any of those guys coming up, late in a game. Like realistically, how much is that going to be a factor?
Well, and you want someone who can play defense late in the game. Obviously, shortstop's not as much of a. Usually, you look at shortstop, and with the Yankees in the past, their defensive guys, the backup infielders have been defensive shortstops. A lot of them, like Hechavarria. There's a bunch of like Tyler Wade was.
If you can play shortstop, you can pretty much play anywhere in the infield.
Right, but shortstop is not they're not taking Volpe out for any defensive purposes at any point. Volpe's going to be playing as many innings as humanly possible.
But you don't want to find yourself in a position where Volpe needs to come out of the game for something, and then you don't have someone to play shortstop.
100%. You need someone who can play shortstop too.
Yes,
but that's not as much of a hard necessity. I'm saying is like to get that like premier shortstop defender. If you have someone who can defend at a high level,
or not
third,
premier,
short, and
someone
second,
who can play it. Someone in an emergency situation is going to play shortstop, and you're not like, well, let's just cross our fingers the ball doesn't go there.
Yeah, and I think, they have some of those guys. Cabrera, came up as a shortstop, has
Yeah.
proved where he can play, multiple infield spots. Looks like it's going to be, his job to lose, to be honest. And then, there's a few different options that the Yankees can go to if they keep another guy on the roster as well.
Well, so what was an uneventful spring training other than us just gushing about Juan Soto's at bats and how everything is going well and guys are in best shape of their life, kind of took a turn this week.
Yeah, but we're not going to let us get us down. We're not going to let it get us down unless Max comes in and drops a nugget here that makes me feel really terrible. But we still got to keep it up. Still got to keep it up, and hopefully this MRI isn't much. Dude, that Juan Soto home run the other day was just, again, I mean, it's like you say this after every single at bat that the guy has, but my God, did he demolish the ball? And I understand, like, the guy that on the mound had no chance. Like he was not in a good spot for multiple at bats. But when Juan Soto came up and just absolutely made him feel like a very small human being because he hit the ball out of the stadium, he's fun to watch, man. I'll continue to say that. Fun to watch.
Indeed, he is. We've got a whole season ahead to do that. So one thing we haven't talked about so far before we get to Max is the Yankees spring breakout game, which is a new thing that the minor leagues, not the minor leagues, that major leagues are doing for minor league players and prospects this year. The roster for the Yankees was announced, and this they're going to be playing. I think they're playing the Blue Jays, right? In this matchup,
Yes.
where it's all prospects, and the team can obviously select which prospects will be in the game, but it's kind of like how the Futures All-Star game happens in the middle of the summer, right before the but it's just like team specific. So I don't think I'm going to read every single Yankees prospect that was announced, but some on here that are more notable: Chase Hampton, Will Warren. We've got for pitching, both announced for the Yankees. Ben Rice was announced for the Yankees. Infielders, we've got Vivas, who's definitely vying for the backup infielder spot. Roger
Arias is
yeah.
the highest. He's the highest rated shortstop in the system, and I think this is the first opportunity we're going to get to look at him, right? So that's a good one to watch.
He's number 3 in the system and number 86 overall on MLB Pipeline. He's also been announced for this game. Spencer Jones, of course, number 2 overall in the system, 84 in MLB. Everson Pereira is going to be in this game. So there's going to be quite a few of the Yankees' top prospects, if not all of their top prospects, playing in this game.
Yeah, it's an interesting, when I first heard about this, I was like, oh, that's really cool. When you break it down, it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of like spring training. Because a lot of these guys are playing on it. You're just not mixing in some major leaguers. It's just like, oh, yeah.
But all of these guys have
so
since
this is like the fifth
sent
inning
down
of
to minor league camp.
This is like a fifth inning of, yeah, but even those guys will, if they're split squad, they still come up and play sometimes. It's like the fifth inning of a spring training game. Awesome.
Why'd you have to just
shine
off that rose like
that? When I first saw it, I was like, with everybody else, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. This is kind of like the fall
then
thing.
You thought about it.
And I'm like, actually, this is just all the minor league guys on the, it's hard to like put out a futures team of just the one organization. Cause all those guys for the most part are up at big league camp, or you're seeing them, intermittently occasionally. So, a couple of these guys we have not seen, which is going to be interesting, but, yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
So maybe they each team can select one other major league player, just put in there and see how much they dominate the game?
No,
like
because
Juan Soto hits third.
That would also be a spring training game.
That's true.
It's just,
so this is just a spring training game.
Yeah, you're just not going to see, maybe they make like Juan Soto could be the first base coach, like we could do that.
Yeah, he's the manager. He's the player manager.
Yeah. They should make the major leaguers be the.
Maybe
the
they will, for
staff.
all we know. I don't know.
They might. That would make it different.
But
that'd
really,
be interesting.
would it?
If he's out there, I want him wearing a helmet and someone in front of him spotting.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up before we get to our segment with Max. But before we do that, gotta ask you some questions. Do you want to eat better? Do you hate going to the grocery store? Do you struggle to cook good and healthy meals? If you answered yes to any of those, then boy, do I have the solution for you. Factor Meals can solve all of those challenges with their amazing ready-to-eat meals delivered right to your door. The process is super easy. You go on their website, you choose from over 35 delicious meals each week. Highly skilled chefs prepare the meals. The food gets delivered to you. It's always fresh and never frozen. You store it in your refrigerator until you are ready to eat them. Just pop it in the microwave for about 2 minutes and boom, you're enjoying amazing food. Factor is affordable and flexible. It costs less than ordering takeout, and you can adjust or pause your subscription whenever you want. I've said this before, but the 5 o'clock to like 7:30 in my household is a complete circus. It's a nightmare. Kids get home from daycare, bedtime routine, bath, toys being thrown against the wall and at my head. The last thing Leanne and I have time for is to cook meals for ourselves. So with Factor, we can eat delicious meals that take just a couple of minutes to prepare. It has been a lifesaver. No prep, no mess, just delicious food. Head to factormeals.com/Bronx50 and use code Bronx50 to get 50% off. That's half off. FACTORMEALS.com/BRONX50. Factormeals.com/Bronx50. Let's talk to Max. Okay, we are joined by Max Goodman, joining us from the Dunedin media room where the Yankees and Blue Jays are going to be playing a game this afternoon. And Max, some breaking news this morning as you were driving over. I guess breaking news on Aaron Judge. We'll start with the Judge stuff because 20 minutes ago, Scott and I recorded something for the rest of the show, and we talked about how we are worried about Cole, but we're not worried about Aaron Judge. This is probably just some spring fatigue. He's going to sit for a few days, and he'll be back better than ever. Well, we got some more news that the MRI was on his he had an MRI on his abs. Tests are clean, which is good. He won't swing a bat this week, and his goal, in his own words, is to play on opening day, but he doesn't feel the need to push it right now, and said the soreness could be connected to extensive winter batting practice. Max, do you have any other information? I'm sure you don't, but what are your thoughts there?
I don't. Yeah. Last night I wrote a story kind of, summarizing the last 48 hours in terms of what's been going on with Judge, and it traces all the way back to when he only took 2 at-bats on Sunday, came out of the game, and, Soto hit that big home run. Judge should have been on deck, but it was Trent Grisham. And, we checked in with him. We checked in with Boone after the game, and that was the scheduled plan, but they made it sound like it was just, hey, we want to split time with Grisham here, and it's only March 10th. You're not going to, not be ready for opening day if you don't take an extra at bat here. But then it was another red flag the next day when Judge wasn't out there for batting practice and he didn't play in the split squad. So now we know that there was a little more going on there. And Boone said in Clearwater yesterday, Monday, that Judge was dealing with some mid-spring soreness that he was feeling, quote, beat up, and that it was probably a product of the workload. So, your mind can go to different places. You give him the benefit of the doubt and think that he is going to be ready for opening day, but for him to slam on the brakes, as it were, here when, it's only just over 2 weeks until opening day, I don't think it's time to panic for the Yankees just yet. But anytime you send someone for imaging, and we'll talk about Gerrit Cole as well, it's not 100% not a concern, right? I mean, you want to go get something checked out, give him a couple of days of rest, and you never know what can happen. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on now in these next couple of days.
Anything with Judge and that core midsection area that clearly affects baseball players when you have to swing a bat. It's a pretty intensive part of your body for doing the thing that you need to do at a high level is a concern. And the fact that they needed to get it, and maybe this is anything with a guy like Judge, anything with a guy like Cole, you get images just to know. And, we were talking about Cole a little bit about like, he's very in tune with everything that goes on with his body, his mechanics, all the things. So like, maybe that was just more information for him. Who knows? That's kind of what I'm hoping for. But with Judge in the midsection, that's definitely something. And, he hasn't taken a lot of at-bats in the spring. Not that anybody's looking for results in spring training for Aaron Judge, because it doesn't matter. But when you start thinking about, what the at-bats have been like, and now you're looking at, some of the smoke that we're starting to see, questions are definitely starting to linger into the back of the head. I really do hope that this is just some fatigue, hitting during the winter a little bit more than usual. And his body just needs to kind of reboot to get ready for spring training. But yeah, man, like this is one of those things. Those two names are not ones you want to hear with the word or initials MRI involved.
Right. And something that I can add is yesterday in the press box, Brian Hoke pulled up the replays of the two at bats that Judge took, and he didn't look like himself. I mean, as you said, these results really don't matter, and maybe he was working on something, but there were some swings that, he wasn't facing Spencer Strider. I don't even remember who he was facing from the Braves in that game. And something that just occurred to me now is I think that Harrison Bader in spring training swung and missed at a pitch and then had an oblique injury. And you could kind of tell in that moment that something might have been up. And there was a replay that kind of circulated on Twitter. I don't remember the user's name. I'd shout him out, but he clipped it, and it was a swing and miss from Judge in his second at bat. And he kind of made, like, you could argue that it looked like a wince. Maybe it was just him saying, "Oh man, I missed that pitch." But I mean, these are all, it builds up the smoke around this, and you're thinking maybe this is something bigger than just giving a guy who's been working out a lot a couple of days. And again, these two players are, to say the least, indispensable, right? I mean, this is the worst case scenario if they're going to miss time. I don't think we can go to that point just yet because there is a little bit of time, and we don't know what the MRI for Cole says just yet, and it seems like Judge is planning to be ready for opening day. But the biggest concern that I have reacting to this is the Yankees expect the Yankees expect Judge to be the everyday center fielder. And if he's already feeling like this after 30 innings in the field and 14 at bats, that's a little bit I'll use the phrase again, a red flag that, is he going to be able to play out there every single day? And that wasn't necessarily the plan. He was going to DH. They have Trent Grisham. He's going to play in center field a lot too. But that's going to start to make it harder for the Yankees to organize that lineup because Soto needs to play right for defensive deficiency purposes. And then what are you going to do with Stanton? If one of those two is at DH, there's a trickle down effect if Judge isn't able to play center field as much. That's what they have to do as of now with the way that the roster is constructed.
And Judge did have an oblique back in 2019. He missed a bunch of time. I just looked up. There was a headline from April 20th about his oblique injury. So this is not like an injury that he's never. And also, we're speculating this might be an oblique thing. He's had midsection core muscle injuries. I'm with you guys. Like this could be a couple week thing, and then he's back and he's fine, and it's like it's never happened. But yeah, I think the lack of time that he's actually had in spring training, coupled with the weird situation on Sunday, like you described, Max, like makes you raise an eyebrow also because of how injuries have gone, like the track record with this team, the Yankees, and how they've mishandled injuries and the fuzziness of their communication on injury timetables and like how things are actually happening. You'd have to be, I mean, anyone is going to be skeptical about the information that they're telling us. That's sort of natural. And it's your job, Max, and your colleague's job to sort of dig into that, to try and find out what's really going on here.
Right. Sometimes you do need to read the tea leaves and kind of just get a sense of what's going on. But you have to also take what the team gives you for face value and react to that, of course, as well. But I think that when you get definitive results on these MRIs, like that's when we can really react to what's going on with Cole. And if Judge doesn't play Wednesday tomorrow, but he also doesn't play for a few more days after that, then you start to think that maybe this is more serious. So for right now, you give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think that Judge has kind of silenced a lot of the injury concerns these last couple of years. Yep. And, I talked about the center field stuff. Let's preface that he played center field a lot in 2022, and he played in 157 games or whatever it was. So he has kind of distance himself from those years where he was injured so much. And last year it was a fluke that he ran into the concrete slab in an antiquated stadium. So,
for a team that spends $1 billion on their players. Yeah.
Right.
Now that they deferred all that money, they can have some money for some extra padding. Well, you said if Judge doesn't play on what he's not going to play. He already said, I'm not swinging a bat for the rest of the week. So we already know he's not playing the rest of this week.
Right. So, at a certain point, he does need to get himself ready. You can train all winter, and that was kind of a narrative the first couple of weeks at camp, is that so many Yankees came to Tampa early and the morale was higher. Everyone was motivated after the way last season went. But those last couple of weeks of spring training games, as much as the results don't matter, they're very important for every single player because the starters are going to start to play deeper into the game, 6-7 innings in the field, 3, 4, 5 at bats by the end. And if Judge is missing out on that time, he's one of the best hitters on the planet. I think he'll be fine as long as he's healthy. But, it's something to keep an eye on, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. All right, so you mentioned Gerrit Cole. Sounds like we're going to get test results back Wednesday or maybe later this week. Anytime there's an elbow MRI for your star pitcher, that's obviously concerning. And I had said to Scott earlier, it's like the three of us have talked about how their concerns in this injury were injury related, and we never even brought up Gerrit Cole. And now Gerrit Cole has the injury concern, and that just sort of makes this even more potentially devastating. Is if the guy you were relying on to make 32 starts, and it wasn't even a question in any of our minds, like, yeah, he's just going to make 32 starts, is potentially out for significant time, then the rest of this rotation looks really shaky.
Absolutely. And again, we're recording this on Tuesday, so by the time you see this out there, the conversation we're having might be outdated. But it is a concern, right? Because when someone does go for an MRI on their elbow, even if it's precautionary, there's clearly something going on there. And like you said, every conversation, you and I this offseason leading into spring training, but everybody else, when you look at that rotation, it was, you've got Cole, he's the ace, he's coming off a Cy Young Award, he's going to be great again this year. And the concerns were the next 4 guys. And is Clark Schmidt going to take a step forward? Can the other 3 guys stay healthy and stay efficient and effective every 5 days? No one was ever considering that with Cole because he's been so durable and consistent throughout his career. So, he hasn't been recovering from his starts. He is feeling some discomfort in there. And the vibe that I got from talking to some of the other players in the clubhouse, as much as they were finding out on MLB Network, like it was fresh in that moment on the TVs in there, that they were saying hopefully it's him trying to get ahead of something, that it's precautionary, that he just wanted to be safe. But again, anytime that there's something involving the elbow, especially with a pitcher that has been so healthy throughout his career and is so cognizant of taking care of his body and his biggest weapon, which is that part of his body, it's a concern. But it may end up being nothing, and it may end up being something where he misses time. We just don't know yet.
What are the conversations between you guys? Because if you look at what his spring training has been, it's been very different. It's been odd because, he got pulled after his first start, then he came back in. So there was something there. Then all of a sudden the next game is not out in a spring training game in front of everybody. It's a sim game behind closed doors. And I went back and was looking at the, him talking to the media, and just, there's little tells that you're looking at of him almost like with an uncertain tone in his voice. But yeah, it's just there. Speaking of smoke, like there's definitely smoke with him, given the way that he's rolled out in spring training. It's been very abnormal to see a guy like him start spring the way that he has, and now all of a sudden he's getting imaging, because I feel like this is something that has been, trying since that first start. And was he having problems bouncing back from that first start also into the sim game, or did we just learn about that after the sim game for this most recent?
That wasn't completely specified in terms of when exactly the recovering process was bothering him. But yeah, I mean, these guys want to be facing other teams. They want to be playing in an in-game environment. So for them to keep him in a controlled environment behind closed doors, like you said, I don't remember seeing anything watching him throw that live session that would have screamed, he's not 100%. And I talked to him the other day about, a bigger picture story that I'm working on about the World Series leadership in that clubhouse, guys who have been there before. And he's one of them. It's not a long list. And he was Gerrit Cole. There were no tells that something was going on. But again, he is such a creature of habit in terms of building up and being so hypersensitive to pitch count and getting those reps in. And so, I remember, I think it was Jack Curry that asked Cole after his live session, or maybe it was Boone, what's the plan now? He's only thrown 50 some odd pitches, and he has 3 starts left to go until opening day. Is he going to throw 15, 15, and 15 to get to closer to 100? And it sounded like they weren't completely sure at that point. Maybe something else was going on behind the scenes. So we'll see when when the Yankees unveil the results of that MRI, and we'll go from there.
And the team is not, and Gerrit Cole is not uncertain with the way that they roll out. You just said he's a creature of habit. This man is a machine with the way that he regiments his work and his body. So the fact that they have an uncertain game plan with how they're going to have Gerrit Cole come out, to me, speaks volumes in what is going on behind the scenes. It definitely tells me that something is there, because if there's any level of uncertainty, if there's nothing going on, then you say the thing. You just, he's going out there, and he'll ramp up till he's ready for a full outing on opening day. That's the answer. But if you don't give that answer, that means there's something else that's deterring you from giving that answer.
Can I quickly ask, Max, do you remember after that first start was March 1st? The plan was not to have him throw a sim game in his next game. The plan at that point was probably to have him make his next start, right? And then at some point in that time period, they decided to do a sim game. Am I correct in that?
That sounds right. March 1st was my first day down
right.
in Tampa, so it's all a blur at this point. But that sounds right. And then,
do you know, has anyone asked them like what changed in those days to make you decide a sim game? Because it's not like unheard of that they just decided to do a sim game. But at the same time, I'm curious if that question was asked to them, like, why did you do a sim game and not have him just make a regular spring start? I don't know if that was ever asked.
I do think that was asked at some point when it was revealed that he was going to throw back at GMS. And I don't think the answer was, it didn't resonate enough with me to have it be something to bring up. But I will say that, like you said, this isn't a complete oddity, right? I mean, like Jonathan Loaizaga hasn't pitched in a Grapefruit League game yet. And he's been, I watched him the other day throw 2 ups on field 2 in Tampa, and he looked great. And he was facing, a lot of the guys competing for bench spots, but he was popping the glove and seemed like Loaizaga, right? And they haven't let him go into a game because it's an easier way to have a controlled environment for someone who has had injuries in the past. But nobody else in the rotation has done that. I guess Rodon did at one point. So sometimes it also comes down to just the fact that there's one game on certain days. There's not always a split squad. And so if Cole, Rodon, and Stroman are kind of lined up on the same 5-day routine, there may just be a circumstance where one of them can't go into the game. And maybe that was the justification at the time. I don't recall exactly, but it was still like, we were all asking each other in the press box, I wonder why he's not going out there. And then there were questions leading up to yesterday about when Cole was going to pitch on Tuesday, if it was going to be here in Dunedin or if it was going to be back at Steinbrenner. And finally, yesterday it was revealed that he wasn't going to throw at all.
When stuff like this happens with Cole and Judge, I'm curious, like what the vibe is among the media. Is it because like it had been a pretty tame spring training, I guess.
It had been completely tame. We just talked about this. The story was there was no story, and now there's.
And then all of a sudden, these two things happen. Just like bat signals go off, and everyone's just like furiously like tweeting and getting stories together because like this is. In a matter of 24 hours, the team's 2 biggest players, I mean, lump in Juan Soto in there too, but the team's 2 biggest players are potentially injured. Like that is pretty wild.
The interesting part of it was that one, not everyone on the beat is down here or was down here at that moment yesterday morning. I was standing with Dan Martin of the Post, Jack Curry, and Brian Hoke on field 2. We were waiting for Judge to come out for batting practice because that's where he was scheduled. And that's when Boone was speaking in Clearwater. And there were 4 or 5 reporters that had made the trip for the other half of the split squad. And so my coworker, Randy Miller, is texting me during that scrum, like starting to feed me information so I'm aware of what's going on. The same thing for Hoke. He had a teammate from MLB in Clearwater. So it would be different, I think, if we were all at Yankee Stadium and the news was revealed by, Boone, say, pregame, and everyone was in one place, and then it would be a fury of tweets. And we would all scramble back up to the press box. But in this case, you have to try to be as flexible as you can. And, they opened the clubhouse in Tampa, and that's where we all went. And, Randy wrote a story immediately from Clearwater based on what Boone had said. And then I went in to try to get the reaction in terms of Cole from some of the pitchers that were, there for the home half of the split squad. So it can be very hectic during spring training, especially when there are multiple games going on. But even on just the home days or the workout days, we have to take screenshots of the schedules that they post for the players in there, because there are so many things going on at once. And, you want to watch Kevin Smith take ground balls on the infield backfield, because you're seeing how he's doing. And then simultaneously you've got Nick Birdie throwing a bullpen and Jahmai Jones taking batting practice on the other field. So you kind of have to just prioritize. And then when news breaks, you run back to your computer and react as quickly as you can.
Mm-hmm. All right, before we wrap up, I know you wrote something on Austin Wells, so I want to get your thoughts there, because he's had a very good spring training, over 1,000 OPS so far. So what did you write about him?
Well, we got Brad Ausmus yesterday in the post game managerial press conference, because he's the acting manager since Boone went on the trip as the new bench coach. And Ausmus won 3 Gold Gloves during his career. He was a catcher for almost 20 years in the big leagues. So as much as he's not as familiar with, he went like this, trying to show us how the catching framing has evolved, since he was in the big leagues. But, I think you can take his word for it as an experienced catcher at this level when he says that, he sees some real potential in Wells. And that's been one of my big takeaways this spring, really. And going back to the fall, I mean, every pitcher that you talked to who had worked with Wells was overwhelmingly impressed with him and the strides that he's been taking as a defender. And, Boone has admitted to us that, he was pleasantly surprised at the way that Wells was able to handle himself back there and call games and limit the run game, when all of those things were kind of the stereotypical, weakness for him as a prospect. And, seeing him now have 2 doubles and 2 home runs in his last 3 spring training games, again, results aren't the be all end all at this point, but you're seeing the strength of his prospect profile, which is his bat, and the fact that he's a left-handed hitter. So you mix all of that together, and I think at this point that there is no competition there. I think he will be on the opening day roster. I'd be surprised if he isn't. And then that brings us to, I think, something that we've discussed already, is what do they do with Ben Rortvedt? And, you ask other folks in that catching room, like Jose Trevino, who's now healthy, and he hit a homer in his first game back. That room is such a strength for this team. And you could go all the way down to the depths of the farm system, but right now, Boone said that he has 5 guys that he would trust in a big league game behind the plate. And that's Trevino, Wells, Rortvedt, Luis Torrens, who's a non-roster guy, and then Carlos Narvaez, who I've heard within the organization is a tremendous defender and pitch framer and receiver behind the plate. So that's not even talking about Augustin Ramirez, who's a top prospect for them, and Ben Rice, who is also a top prospect. And those guys are knocking on the door. So that position group is just a huge strength for them. Maybe that makes it easier for them to dangle someone like a Rortvedt, or, not carry Torrens if there's no spot for him after he made a good impression at camp. But yeah, long story short, I'd be very surprised if it's not Trevino and Wells on the opening day roster. And I think Wells is living up to the potential as a first round pick, and a guy that's, gone through the system really quickly over these last couple of years. And I don't think he'll ever look back, as long as he can stay healthy and continue to take strides defensively.
With his pedigree and the fact that, he was first round guy, all of the hype around the bat. And I wasn't really concerned even about with him with the bat. He just, it seemed like he just needed to get into it and go, because he's got great mechanics. He looks really good up at the plate. It was just a matter of time. But the fact that he's, getting all of these glowing reviews, and you're right, even going back to last year, they were talking about how people were impressed and not with the word surprise, but it was one of those pleasant things that they were not expecting, maybe, about how where his defensive game was at this point. So, I mean, the way that if you look at him on the roster, he's not going to be there to be the backup catcher either, right? Like maybe there's more of an even split, but yeah, the tendency is going to go to him. It's you don't want him sitting. Trevino can do that. He can sit, and then he can play when his name is called. A guy like Wells, who does have that bat, you want consistency. I would expect him to get more of that playing time. And
you're talking 60-40, not 80-20, because I don't know either of those. Like mostly in baseball, and especially with the Yankees, has been more of like a hybrid catcher role. And like, unless you're some superstar all-star, you're not the 4 out of 5 days like Jorge Posada was 20 years ago.
Right. I mean, there was a moment where we were, peppering Boone with questions about Wells a couple of days ago. And he alluded to the fact that, if he's going to make the team, he's not going to be, a reserve. He's going to have a pretty significant dose of playing time, possibly like 3+ times a week, 4 times a week. And how is he going to work with, let's say Cole is completely healthy in himself? Who is Cole going to want to pitch to? Probably Trevino. But then again, if there's a powerhouse right-handed pitcher that they're facing, maybe you want Wells in the lineup for that. And there really isn't an avenue for him to play DH. I don't think he's a first baseman. Like, I think catching is the way he's going to get in the lineup. And that's where they want him to continue to grow, because eventually he's going to be the starter back there full time. I think that's what the Yankees want, right? That's the best case scenario, that he is the guy for the foreseeable future.
If he comes out hot with the bat, it's going to be very difficult to take him out of the lineup on a consistent basis. They're gonna, if his bat is going and he is this, much improved defender that they're speaking of, I think it's going to be difficult to take him out on a consistent level, even split time. I think he's going to get the nod more often than we think.
Yeah, and the only other thing I can add there is I go on a lot of trips to Somerset and some of the minor league affiliates during the year, and I talked to Wells. This was long before he made his debut, and at that point the narrative was, are you going to be able to stick at catcher when everyone is saying that you can't do it? And any question that I asked him at that point, and he wasn't even, again, making his debut just yet, he just loves catching, and he wants to get beat up behind the plate and take the foul balls and do the extra drills. And then when he makes his debut, and Michael King, who's a savant of pitching and wants someone back there that he can trust, is just, again, dropping this high praise of someone who hadn't proven yet that he was a good catcher back there. And there are a lot of different pitchers that have been working with him this spring, and no one is complaining about it. Obviously they wouldn't necessarily do that publicly, but this is an upgrade at that position compared to what it's been over the last several years. And that's no knock on Kyle Higashioka, who was great in his role. But if Trevino is able to be healthy and go back to maybe not necessarily the all-star platinum glove Trevino, but if he's better, because last year was not what he wanted, and he was hurt basically the whole season until he got shut down. If you have him and you have the upside of Wells, who, he could hit 20, 30 home runs with his swing at Yankee Stadium if all goes well. Wells, right? So we'll see.
Well, it's definitely like you said, it's definitely a position of strength, and the depth in the organization, I think, is something that they've always had, like especially under Brian Cashman the last 10, 15 years. It feels like the depth at catcher has always been a strength of his in the draft and in the development in this system.
They've drafted a lot of catchers.
They have drafted a lot of catchers. Yeah. All right, Max. Well, that is going to wrap it up for us today. I know you've probably got a busy day of reporting and covering the game. So enjoy the rest of the day in Dunedin, and we will talk to you next week.
Sounds like a plan, guys. Thanks as always. See you soon.